All right, welcome back, people. In this video, I want to talk about on step 4 of the fund launch formula. Hopefully you've now learned all the frameworks and everything, and now you're ready to launch your fund. Okay, what's the actual process for doing this? And again, I'm a big proponent of don't go to step 4 until you've soft or verbally raised a significant amount of money in stage 3. Okay, as you can see here. And if you haven't soft raised yet, go back to step 2 and 1 and keep iterating on 1, 2, and 3 throughout the fund launch formula. Now, but hopefully you're here, you're step 4. Let's dive into this kind of sub framework of step number 4, the actual, what I like to call the triforce of launching. We need a better name for that. If you guys have any ideas for a better name for the triforce of launching your fund, please message me, let me know. So we'll strike that name for now, but this is I'm gonna call it the triforce of launching for this time's sake. We might have to refilm this video in the future, but there's 3 distinct pillars when you're launching your fund. The legal aspect, marketing partners, and I would also call service providers, kind of 3 different pillars or part of this triangle when you launch your fund. Now, I'll tell you a quick story as we dive into number 1, which is legal, okay? I've launched a number of funds. My last fund, so I know a lot about funds. I've launched a number of funds, and I went to my lawyers, and I was with my lawyers, and I asked them, hey, do we have everything done to launch our fund? Are we good? And I was trying to test them actually a little bit. And so I said, hey, are we good to go? Like, yeah, Bridger, we got everything. We're good to go. We got it. I'm like, are you sure? We filed all the documents, SEC, like legal disclosures, like everything's ready to go. He's like, yeah, we got you your LP and PPM. And yeah, everything else is good to go. I said, okay, great. What about my Form D? Have we filed the Form D yet? Oh, yeah, we're working on that. We'll get that going. No big deal. Okay, what about our Form ADV? Oh, yeah, we're gonna get working on that. We'll get going. Yeah, we're gonna get the Form ADV going. I was like, what if I didn't ask you those questions or would you have filed them? Hey, have we filed for an exempt reporting advisor yet? Oh, yeah, we forgot. We haven't done that yet, but yeah, we're working on it. We're going to get that going. I'm like, I'm really happy I asked you. I'm really happy that we're talking about this. Hey, are we going to do have we done our blue sky filings yet? Oh, no, not yet. There was 3 or 4 things that they had not done yet, and I don't think would have done unless I specifically followed up on that thing. A lot of people that don't go through this program go and try to launch funds and they don't even know, they don't know the unknowns. And so they talk to a lawyer, are we ready to go? He says, yeah, we're ready to go. And then in reality, they didn't file their Form ADV. They haven't done blue sky filings. They haven't done their Form D. All these things we'll talk about right now. And they're out of compliance. And they can get fined or even worse, go to jail because they did it wrong. And lawyers are great, but you don't want your lawyer to also be your teacher. Okay, you want to know enough about funds. That's why this program's amazing, that you can actually know what to work with your lawyers and actually strategize within the legal framework for what your lawyers have built out. Okay, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So what I want to give you right now on this triforce of launching your fund with legal, this is for pretty much any fund you're going to launch, at least a checklist of things to walk through with your legal team so that you make sure and they make sure that these things are included or a part of all the stuff you need. Okay, sounds good. So first thing, pretty common, is your LPA and PPM. You should already know this. This is your limited partnership agreement and private placement memorandum. We've talked about these a lot in the program and other stuff. These are your 2 main documents to launch your fund. They govern the rest of your fund. Good chances are that's what your legal team will work on the majority of their time, okay? After that though, you'll also want subscription docs and or an investor questionnaire. When someone is subscribing to your fund, they typically are filling out 50, 60 questions to come into your fund. And these are supplemental documents. Like for example, my fund, when an investor wants to join, I send them my LPA, my PPM, and I also send them my subdocs and my investor questionnaire for them to fill out and type up and send all the stuff in through DocuSign, and they return that back to me to subscribe to the fund. Make sure your legal team sends those to you, okay? Additionally, entity formation, okay? For your general partner, your limited partnership, your management company, make sure those entities are filed. You've got EIN numbers, you've got articles of incorporation, okay? You've actually gotten and received those back. A lot of times they'll file those in Delaware for the United States or in a certain state that you're in. Make sure those are filed, okay? Next one up, operating agreement for all 3 entities. Make sure or maybe 2 of the 3 entities, you have actual operating agreements for how the general partner is going to run. An operating agreement is the agreement between you and the partners on the general partner of how the operations will go, how we can vote on things, etc. Okay. Same with your management company. Make sure you have operating agreements for those companies. Okay. Additionally, something I'll add here, a lot of times your limited partnership will hire your management company, and there's an agreement there saying our limited partnership has hired the management company to be our investment manager. And we are going to get investment advice from them, and we're going to pay them a 2% management fee per year. Okay? Make sure that document is done by your legal team. All right? This is helpful. I'm going to keep going. It's kind of a checklist for you guys. Number 5, your Form D. This is a filing with the SEC. Your lawyer will help you fill it out for you. But this actually files a notice with the SEC that you are actually filing and raising capital for a fund, and it goes through your exemptions. You're going to be for example, a Reg D 506B. You're going to run a 3C1 fund. You check those boxes on the Form D. Additionally, you'll file your Form ADV, another form that you file, and they post that, and you have to update that every year and make sure your legal team helps you with that. With FINRA, if you're going to be an investment advisor, registered investment advisor, or exempt reporting advisor, make sure that's filed with FINRA. Okay, and then also Blue Sky filings. Blue Sky filings are notices every time. We have other videos on all these, so these are just review for you guys, but when you raise money from a certain state, you actually notify the state that you've raised money from that state. Usually it's within 15 days of raising money there. So as you raise money, you'll do Blue Sky filings. So you can take a screenshot of that or whatever. This is the checklist. Some funds have more nuances than others, but for every fund, you're pretty much going to want all of this for your fund. So grab a screenshot of that. This will help you with a legal almost questionnaire when you go talk to your lawyers. All right? All right, back to the triforce of launching. That's kind of the first pillar up here or the first corner for legal. All right, next one is marketing, okay? We have a full section that you guys can see in the course and program, whatever, for marketing, but this gives you a brief overview of stuff, just kind of nuts and bolts when you're launching a business. Buying a domain. You know, we run fundlaunchpartners.com, like buying that domain. I like to use GoDaddy. So go to GoDaddy.com. You can buy fundlaunchpartners.com. Well, you can't buy it anymore because we bought it, so tough. But you can buy whatever a domain you'd like. Additionally, building out a CRM or an investor database. At the beginning of your fund, a lot of times you'll use like Excel or a Google Sheet. Then you can graduate into something easier. Personally, though, there are a lot of expensive investor databases. They'll charge you $1,000 a year per seat. I just think they're not worth it. Unless you're running tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, investors through this, you can use something like Monday.com. It's $6 a month. Again, you can decide there's Juniper, Square, other things. These are all softwares that kind of house your investors, but they all are essentially it's just glorified spreadsheets in my opinion. But I would be cost effective with those unless you're managing hundreds of thousands of people inside of your fund. Okay, next one is email. So once you bought your domain, I like using something like G Suite. So this is through Google. So for example, like Bridger@fundlaunch.com. Okay, that email, we attached our domain, fundlaunch.com, to that thing through G Suite. It's still a Gmail account, but so it looks and acts just like Gmail, but it has that domain, Bridger@fundlaunch.com. It makes you look very professional, and it's what everyone does. Okay, so make sure to do that. It's like $5 a month. Go set that up. Placement agents. Okay, this is something you can or cannot hire. A placement agent is essentially a glorified salesperson. These people work usually on fees or commissions, and they will actually go market and raise money for you in your fund. Okay, placement agent, they'll charge you anywhere from maybe 2% to 7% of the capital raised. So if they raise you $1 million, they're going to charge you $20,000 to $70,000 to raise that capital. These are professional capital raisers that you can use for your fund. Again, I would be very selective. If you're going to use them, be very selective. Make sure to read the contracts. A lot of them take a retainer, like $10,000 a month or something. So again, they're decently expensive, can be very useful, but also can be very expensive. So just be careful before you go hire a placement agent. Okay. Additionally, building a website, pretty standard. There's about 1,000 different website builders. We love ClickFunnels, but a bunch of other funnel builder, ClickFunnels softwares or website building softwares, etc. Okay. We have a marketplace with Fund Launch that some of you guys have access to. You can actually go house your fund here. It's an example of my fund that's here that people can come and invest at. And it's more of a house, almost like a website that you can host for your investments. Okay. All right. So there's the summary. There's legal at the top. There's marketing partners there. And this is not go-to-market strategy. This is more like marketing partners to just make you look good. And there's a ton more stuff you can do here. You can be in Bloomberg. You can go to CNBC. You can get a really cool thing. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with marketing, but that's kind of the bare bones that I would tell you with marketing. All right. Finally, service providers. This is super crucial. When you're launching your fund, it feels kind of like, at least for me, you're duct taping like 50 things together to launch your fund. And the nice thing is with us, we help consolidate a lot of that for you into one spot. So I'll give you kind of a list of service providers to at least look at and potentially use when you're launching your fund. Okay. Number one, third-party administration. Make sure you use a third-party admin. By the way, this is not a software. Almost every software, they'll have language. They kind of act like a third-party admin, but they're not really a third-party administrator. When you actually go read the white paper on their actual terms of service, they're just a software. A third-party administrator actually is an administrator on your fund. One of our favorite ones that we've used, and we have a kind of a discount with our community, is NAV Consulting. They manage something like 2,500 funds. They're out of Chicago. They do all this cool stuff. They actually, for our fund at least, they look into our fund. They can read every single trade and movement we make, and they validate every metric, a statement, number that we put out is ran through their system to make sure it checks out. They check everything to make sure it's accurate. Okay. A lot of softwares will not do this. You actually need a third-party administrator to do that. Okay. Does that make sense? Next one is a compliance partner. We've got a few groups in here as service providers that you guys can go look at. But a compliance partner there's just always updates in compliance. You can hire them for a couple $1,000 a year, and they will keep you up to compliance with all the stuff in fund regulation. Make sure that you are doing things correctly and not out of compliance. All right. Another one is accounting, and I'll put audit on here too. So accounting can be done through your third-party admin. Sometimes they have an accounting arm. Other times they don't, but make sure you have good fund accountants, people that actually are good at funds, not just any old accountant. Make sure they're a fund accountant specifically. And then fourth is audit. Every fund that comes through Fund Launch, I'm going to tell you all to make sure you do third-party administration and third-party audits. Okay, an audit is a different group. Usually once a year they'll come in and they actually look through your whole fund and make sure everything is done correctly. A quick story is Bernie Madoff. You know Bernie Madoff. He ran his fund for about 30 years. Never once had a third-party administrator and never once had an audit. He told people, hey, if you want an audit, go somewhere else. We don't do audits here. But if you want it, and people would say, whatever, Bernie's great. He was the president of the NASDAQ. He was given millions of dollars to charity. He's a great guy. Everything was awesome. And people just trusted him. Said, yeah, Bernie's a great guy. Put some money with him. Until he stole like $28 billion. And he never had an audit for 30 years. One of my rules of investing, I invest in a lot of funds. I will never invest in your fund or any fund unless you have third-party administration and a third-party audit on that fund. Because, and I'll tell you from experience, it's too easy for a fund manager without this to cook the books, to change things, to move numbers, to change spreadsheets, to make even an honest error. An accountant or a third-party administrator will catch those things and make sure they're done correctly. So huge, massive thing you need to have this in your fund. And I'll add this, by the way, your fund will pay for most of these expenses, okay? You're probably the question you're asking, how much does each one of these cost, okay? Third-party admin will cost you, on the low end, 8 to 15 grand a year. On the high end, you can spend up to 50 to 80,000 a year, depending on how big your fund is. That's why we love these smaller ones we've given you guys. Compliance partners, a couple thousand a year. Accounting, depends how big of accounting you want to do. Audit just depends on how big you want to go. For a $10 million fund, you're probably spending 10 to 15 grand per each one of these as you launch, okay? Next one's good banking partner, making sure that you can have, and it will depend on your asset class, but finding a good banking partner that can give you leverage, work with your fund, work with all the stuff you're doing, etc. Broker or prime broker. If you're in real estate, you need some kind of brokerage or broker firm, maybe you do that internally, externally. With a hedge fund, a prime broker will oftentimes execute the trades for you. So it's a good service provider to have if you're a hedge fund and doing trading. Insurance partners. Things like D&O, E&O, EPL, cyber, ransom. Very good to have. D&O and E&O, that stands for directors and officers. And E&O stands for errors and omissions. Those are very good. Like, if you've ever been worried as a business owner, like, what if I get sued? And I got to pay, even if I'm in the right, I got to pay $500,000 in legal fees. That would stink, you know? That's what insurance, D&O and E&O will cover a lot of the times. Is, hey, if you get sued or have a big loss or whatever, you'll pay the first 25 grand, but then the insurance kicks in and will pay the next $1 million or $5 million of legal fees to fight something that's going on, okay? For any business, it's good to have D&O and E&O. EPL is employee practice or liability insurance. That's just in case, like, the secretary sleeps with somebody else, or I don't know, something crazy happens in your business and you get sued. That'll help it protect employees. Cyber is if you get hacked, and ransom is if, like, you got kidnapped. And those are just a few examples. There's a lot more insurances you can get, but those are kind of some basic ones you can start looking at for your fund. I would highly recommend, though, at least getting D&O and E&O insurance. That protects directors and officers, and errors and omissions inside of the fund will help at least pay for the legal fees there. All right, so that's the summary for service providers. I'll kind of give this, you guys can take a screenshot of that, some good checklists to use, the triforce of launching when you're going out and launching your fund. Make sure these things are there. We have some other videos that kind of go more in depth on some of these, but at least this is a good checklist for you to run through when launching your fund to make sure things are done the right way. And some of these can be decently expensive. And also, when you're starting your fund, a lot of times you're paying for these up front. As you launch your fund will reimburse you back for those expenses. Okay, so a lot of times you're paying out of pocket, and then once your fund launches, they reimburse you back. That's why I love the fund launch formula. That's why this is step 4. This is the last step in the fund launch formula, because hopefully you've already got millions of dollars verbally raised at this point. And so you're very confident that when you launch, you're going to be raising millions and millions of dollars, and you can just reimburse back from the fund to yourself for these costs and expenses. So with that, that's the summary of the triforce of launching. We'll see you in the next video.